this. Well, and I did the wrong thing. I did the wrong thing. All right, now I did the right thing. All right, ladies and gentlemen, and folks all across different corners of the internet and whatever you may identify as, we're going to do a quick little adjunct part two to our previous discussion. Joining me right now is the notorious Scooby331. Say hello, Scoobs.
What up, all? How you doing?
All right, let me crank Scoob's mic up a little. No, that's my mic. Okay, never mind. Things were good. I'm looking at the things wrong. I'm like, that was you bleeding in through me. All right, leave me alone. All right, but as we can see here, the title of the stream is Break the Walls Down. Because apparently, some people have been exploiting President Trump's border barrier. So, Scoobs, you have a little bit of a lowdown on this. Let's let the internet know what's going on.
Oh, sure. Originally, he wanted to do something a lot more grandiose, a lot bigger of a construction, and the House and the Senate basically. I hate going here when I have to go here, but it was the Dems again. They pushed for this thing to be made out of slatted steel. Now, myself, coming off of working construction for many years when I was younger, I took one look at this thing when they were putting it up. I said, I give it a few months before they just go rent themselves a sawzall and start cutting through the thing.
Shh. Don't divulge any intelligence-based secret. Scoobs, I hear. Here's the thing. Like I did some construction back in the day. I have done some more recently, but the thing that you learn is once you develop like new tools and everything and different let's say accessories and whatnot to it, that stuff works pretty good, man. It
Yeah,
does. Like you go from doing that and then every once in a while you just grab an old school hat saw. It's like, yeah, you may have been able to get out of jail back in the day. Would have taken you a while. Having certain tools along with certain accessories can definitely accelerate the process. As far as I understand, there's also concrete in there as well. I get that, but dude, you can chip away at concrete. Once
yeah,
it receives impact, it does start becoming more brittle. That's why, like, if you're gonna actually build like a big solid building, you're gonna have all different types of things. I did kind of like the argument with like, whoa, you can kind of see through it. It's like, all right, that is cool, but then again, and if there is something there, yes, it is more of a deterrent. Is everyone necessarily going to do this exact thing? No, but if people are spending thousands of dollars to try to make it here to have a better life, it's just I I think you need to do something necessarily better than just strictly I will build a wall. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Thanks, Arnold. Yeah, we get that.
What I envisioned that they were going to do, because this is something they've been talking about since you and I were kids. I pictured that they were going to build something actually akin to the Pentagon, but in a long, laid out pattern along the wall. And I figured that it was going to be something where they were going to have like almost like ports, if you will, like when you pull into by the water, but to let people through for the sake of commerce and for business, for naturalization purposes. I had a whole picture in my head of them having something. Literally, if I don't know if you've ever seen what the Pentagon looks like, they have their own metro station. It's efficient. It's run well. I figured they could put all of the naturalization places right within this structure, all built on the wall. And I looked at it as actually, if anything, people are like, "Oh, it's going to say stay out." I guess growing up by the New York Port Authority, I see it as it's going to draw business and commerce in from further down in Latin and South America up through Mexico. It would be a windfall for Mexico. I was thinking that they were going to have something akin to like what the setup is in Israel, where you can actually come in and within a certain distance of the wall, quote unquote wall, it's a building setup like I'm talking about, you can actually do business and do commerce within Israel. I figured we would have something like where you could come into the United States and do business within this section with tourism, like with the tourists from the United States, and likewise United States citizens
Oh, I think
Mexican side.
right.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's the way I was thinking it. And then The Democrats started throwing holy hell, and we put up this giant fucking slatted fence, and I'm looking at it like, oh, opportunity lost.
See, I actually had a strangely similar idea in that I remember when at
Mm-hmm.
that time candidate Trump was going in through he's like it's going to be a big beautiful wall. Oh, it'll be such an amazingly great wall and all that jazz. He says there'll be a big beautiful door. I want to hold him to that promise and with something similar because what he had said, if you actually go through the dude's words, sorry, President of the United States, because Jon Stewart got some. He got some slack for calling President Obama dude on the Daily Show. I realize this is not the Daily Show and the president is not in front of me, but we should try to be respectful. Doesn't always happen, but my thing is, all right, what is the president good at? He's good at building resorts and stuff like that. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so what if, because he was establishing a pathway to citizenship for folks greater than just the dreamers and everything, but what he said is if somebody literally was not part of that dreamer group, if they had entered the country illegally and everything, and basically they didn't have the proper documentation, they would have to leave and essentially get in line. To physically get everyone out of the country, to take them out of their communities and everything, that doesn't really necessarily make sense to me. I mean, one, the humanitarian point. Two, you actually try to figure the logistics of that, dude. You're just going to be interrupting everything. So
Yeah.
what you could do is you bring people out of darkness. You just say, okay, here's the thing. We are here. You are functioning within the community. If folks know you, hopefully they can vouch with you. I mean, we do have courts and local jurisdictions if we need to, but we do need to have some semblance of forgiveness in our society that we're strictly lacking. Because if you did something like that and said, okay, here's what you do, you need to go through, maybe not necessarily leave right now, but you go through your period of time, whatever, 7 years or so, to become a naturalized citizen. You take the test, and what you could do is you could almost turn this into like a ritual if you would. You'd have a big beautiful door, and guess what? A lot of folks they walk through the door, they say a little their oath to the country, pledge of allegiance, whatever it is. They walk back through, and now you're a U.S. citizen. And guess what? That sounds like a pretty good place to, I don't know, put up maybe a hotel, a water park, or something like that. Turn it into a positive. Will it involve investment? Yeah, but you're saying that there aren't a lot of folks that wouldn't put up private capital to at least match government, if not do the vast majority? Dude, I think that would be an excellent idea.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, if we built it like a Pentagon complex, put it all within one building, within the wall, keep it all interconnected, makes things so much easier for logistics purposes. And the other thing of it is, and it this it was one of those things that bothered me to no end when they did this. Excuse me. They turned around and they started bitching and complaining about how they want it to be transparent and they want this and they want that. And to me, it's they're going at it again like it's a barrier. And to me, I was looking at it more as like the 21st century's version of Ellis Island. In all honesty,
The, I've heard people argue for an Ellis Island style immigration based system. I mean, I understand it. We've come a bit since then. We have more ports of entry and everything. So,
yeah,
but the general concept, my one issue with kind of having like it be like a 3,000-mile Pentagon man is just you're talking a lot of money right there. Because let's face it, I think a number of us have watched Game of Thrones and something about like 1,000-mile long giant ice wall. That's pretty badass. I think it would melt that far down there, so that's probably not a good idea. So just from a feasibility standpoint, and that's the thing. It's like when President Obama won the election, he said something along the lines of elections have consequences, and he asked for about $800 billion. That was his pitch that I remember him laying out. Okay, if elections do have consequences, and President Trump, one of his promises was, "I'm going to build a wall." Okay, what is it like? $30 billion, is that what's realistically going to be if he wants to do if he wants to spend 20 or $30 billion on a recyclable border barrier that if if S ever hits the fan, guess what? Oh, we need strategic steel. Yoink. That's
Yeah,
I'm thinking also from just like a structural point because it's like, all right, if our strategic reserves were only like 1 million barrels or so back in the day, it's like, huh, we could probably go through that pretty quickly now. Maybe these are some things that we should we should take a look at just in case. And there's nothing wrong with preparing. And that's why when folks go, "Oh, well, you're a prepper or something," it's like, okay, would you rather have it and not need it than need and not have it?
true. I just, I honestly see it as if we had something set up there, well, something akin to what I'm talking about. I just see so much opportunity, not just for commerce. I honestly see the Gulf Coast itself as replacing the East Coast and the West Coast, more the East Coast than anything. But I see it; it's already on its way to replacing these coasts as the centers of commerce, as where most of the goods come into this country. But not just our country. This we have an opportunity right now to work out a partnership with the Caribbean countries, with the South American countries. Basically, I don't know if you're familiar with the Confederacy pipe dream that they had, the Golden Crescent, they called it. They actually, at one point, the Confederates were thinking about conquering further south and building up the whole Caribbean into their own version of the Mediterranean. I'm not talking about any imperialistic conquest of the South American countries, but I don't see why we shouldn't be able to do partnerships with this hemisphere the same way we've worked out partnerships with Canada. To me, it's a no-brainer.
Well, it's change, man. That's the thing. Change is often very scary to a lot of folks, and it's just that's why I think is some of this deliberate by certain folks? I mean, statistics would tend us to say, yeah, probably is. Just yeah, there are folks out there that are just doing it for willy nilly, but a number of folks have their own reasons as well. So when you just kind of look at what's going on, yeah, folks are already interacting within these countries. If you're interacting within those countries and you've learned a way that's working for you and you don't want to wreck it, that's the thing. It's like you tend to go the path of least resistance. We're about 80% water. I like to say that, even though it's like 62 to like 67 or so. But my big thing about that is, okay, how do you implement change? Because all I know is when I did go to higher education, they taught us this thing. They called it total quality management. And even though that was the thing that they stressed, I'm not sure I've completely ever seen it truly implemented. It seems like we kind of jump. I realize things are very complex, but I don't know. Do we not have the technology now to get at least enough information together, kind of sift through it, maybe look up for those proverbial gold nuggets, if you would, as we go, and you give credit where credit's due? Because a lot of folks, they don't want to say anything because, well, don't steal my idea, don't steal my idea. It's like, dude, how many of us invented like Grubhub.com? It's like, oh, dude, it's late. We've been drinking and doing unwise things. You want pizza? Yeah. You want to call? No. You? No. If only there was a solution to this. Yeah, and the whole I don't want to wait on a cab. It's like, all right, we got an Uber. Okay, well maybe New York. You, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, seriously. We actually avoid Ubers around here. Like it's really funny. I went to Popeyes for something about I don't know a month ago, and I parked the car and I go in, and there's these kids getting dropped off by an Uber. So I go in, order my food, I eat. I'm in there maybe about 20 minutes. I go to leave, and there's these same kids, and they hop back into the same Uber, and they leave. They went to the mall for 20 minutes. They didn't have anything in their hands. And the thing I'm thinking of is, isn't it like $45 a pop to get Uber or some shit like some like just flat rate that's a little bit high?
It it depends. You get billed per mile, the visits, you can tip and every. All I know is when I went down to Disney World last year with ex Mrs. Memes, um, we elected not to rent a car. I was like, oh, we won't have to pay for parking over there. It's because we were at like a little timeshare that we swapped out because her mom had a timeshare, and it's like, oh, well, this is cool. We'll just Uber, and and then when you do that, because they also had a little bus, but certain times we'd like to sleep in. It's like, oh, we need to get back. Hmm. And especially if you want to leave for lunch and then go back, it's like, dude, that adds up, man. That
Oh yeah,
friggin' adds up real quick. It's like, oh, it's not, it'll only be like 16 bucks, 17 bucks, 18 bucks. You get surge pricing. All right, with dip, that's like 22 bucks. It's like, yeah, yeah, it is
yeah,
nice, but no, it's a business, man. You got to make money,
it
so
is. Well, I prefer going with the cabbies. I like talking to them because I'm a people person. I want to know where the hell they're from. I want to know what's going on. Like a lot of these people, when I get into a call with an Uber, I've been in Uber and I've been in Lyft before. Uh, I nothing against. I don't want to sit here and stereotype the people that drive them, but they tend to be, I don't know, milksops, for lack of a better term. I mean, I guess you got to have that sort of a personality to drive people around, but you try talking to these folks. I guess it might be the accent, it might be my appearance. I probably just might be scaring the shit out of them. I don't know, but because I'm bombastic and outgoing. But I get into the car with them half the time, and they're driving, and they're like this. I'm looking at them like, what are you gonna do? Like, seriously.
Scoob. Here's the thing,
Yeah,
dude. When you get into a lift and you're wearing a red, white, and blue Jason mask, I mean, people might clam up a little bit. You must understand this. It's kind of like
yeah,
with the Macho Man Randy Savage. He's like, I always seem to be late for my planes. It's like, Randy, you're wearing all your gear throughout the airport. Did you ever think that somebody might recognize you? You have a point. And it's just like you just hadn't considered that. That's why
yeah,
I'm just citing that as potential cause, maybe.
yeah. No, I hear that. I don't obviously wear this walking around in Manhattan, but yeah, no, just in general. It's like that's why I prefer cabs. They don't give a shit how you dress. Yeah, I
I mean, it is well, dude. If they're a cabbie, there's a good chance that they've been doing that for a while. And if you've
yeah,
been in the industry, you've probably met a lot of people, and there's certain jobs where you get to, let's say, meet America, the
yeah.
good, the bad, and everything in between.
Well, I drove a hack for a little while myself there, so I enjoyed it. That's part of the reason I gravitate towards taxis. I drove a taxi, drove deliveries, uh, worked on a garbage truck for a little while. I did it all, and it's one of those things. It's part of. I guess it's why I like this country so much. It's it's funny because people see me, and they see Trump supported. Immediately, the first thing they think is, you're anti-diversity. I'm from the most diverse place in the country. I'm a fucking ethnic. And I'm not going to sit here and pull a Tim Pool and immediately start talking about, my ethnicity and being one quarter Korean or any of that shit that guy always goes on about. Plus, I don't have a beanie on, so it's pointless. But you know, it's one of those things like growing up around here. It's my interest is the country, man. It doesn't matter what walk of life a person is from. I mean, if they're a decent human being, they're paying the same taxes as me, they're dealing with the same shit roads as me, they're dealing with the same friggin' infrastructure problems I'm dealing with. What the fuck do I care how they dress or how they look? Seriously. As long as you're not gonna do something crazy like shoot at me, I could give a fuck less. You know? I just
That's why I go back down to it's like, all right, do not harm.
yeah.
That's the thing. We're always going to hurt each other. That's just kind of a given that we kind of
Yeah.
do there. All right. Oh, yeah, gaming and yelling. That should be a little better. I wasn't paying attention to all my sound levels because I didn't want to blow out everyone's eardrums like I have done on many two. These things happen. These things happen. Let's move along. Let's move along. All right.
Yeah.
I think we're better over here at those levels. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out. Again, we strive towards a more perfect union. There's a
Yeah.
lot. There's gonna be. It's gonna take a lot of striving. It's gonna take a lot of striving,
Yeah.
but I think we can get towards more perfect. I
And
believe in us.
hey, look, I'm not, bro. I'm being sincere. I don't like to come on your stream and Democrat bash, but when I say that the president has actually uh, I guess cowed the Republicans, like he's got the Republicans acting like human beings. I mean, did you or I know I never did in my lifetime think that I was going to hear the Republicans say, "Yeah, we got no problem with gay people." That blew my mind when he got the Republicans to be like, yeah, all right, we got no problem with gay people. You know, we got no problem with trans people. We got no problem with this. We got when he got the Republicans to be like they're Americans, I was like, holy shit, this man's a miracle worker. Because I grew up under, Dick Cheney, where it's okay, we're gonna blow this grid of the map into Kingdom Come, Field of Glass. So I'm used to like neocon Republicans, and to me, that's the problem I have with the Democrats right now is okay, we got the Republicans at the table, guys, rein it in. Let's do some talking. You
No,
know,
no, no. Wasn't Dick Cheney's daughter? Didn't she happen to be a lesbian? Just
I got no idea.
oh no, no. See, I thought you used that example as kind of like to kind of bring people's minds in one direction and then shock them back because that was the one major point that I remember him disagreeing with President Bush on because I believe his daughter
Hmm.
happened to be a lesbian, and that was one of the major issues that, as a gentleman who may typically be viewed as conservative on many things, he happened to be more liberal on that
Yeah,
particular issue. And I think folks understand why the man feels that way. So
yeah,
like that's my big thing. It's like, okay, what is a conservative? What is a liberal? And I see these political compass tests and everything, and I hear what seems like either people completely hate it because they're like, that's not what I am, or they're like, yeah, that makes sense. So it's like I don't really hear much in between. It's like I think there's other factors here that we're not fully exploring that kind of may explain a lot more of these things.
like a lot of the people who identify as conservative, I can't get along with. A lot of them, I can't get along with at all. A lot of the people who identify as right wing, I can't get along with at all. But then in the same breath, there are people who identify on both of those points that I get along with swimmingly. It depends on the topic, and it depends on it's really a person to person thing. I mean, you lean left on a lot of subjects, and for all clear, obviously, I tell people all the time. When I try to describe your politics to them, I say, a soft JFK Democrat. Somebody you actually enjoy talking to. Just really, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass either. I'm being sincere. It's actually refreshing to be able to talk to somebody like you. I haven't been able to have a conversation like this. Oh my God, I think since Obama's was running for his second term of office, people have just, I mean, by me anyway, people have just gone completely goose shit, and it's scary. But I think that's what the problem is there's not a lot of classical right wingers left either, and a lot of people don't realize it because Trump is in office and there's so much noise going on. I'm finding less and less people I can talk to that would have been considered right wing that haven't gone completely fringe. I'm finding more and more people who are right wing who've gotten a lot more radicalized, and I hate saying this, again, when I say the Democrats, I'm always talking specifically about the elected officials and the media. The media really is pissing off the middle of the country because they're not stupid people. Despite all the memes and the jokes, people in the rest of the country just as smart as you and me, if not smarter, and they're getting pissed off. You know?
And one of the things is okay, yeah. I actually I'm not sure why did they always call like a lot of the center of the United States flyover country just because so many folks that aren't from there just kind of fly over it like that if anything kind of seems offensive to me and like I'm
Yes.
not even from there. So I'm just like, dude, all I know at one point is I told a dude from where was it, Idaho, that his home didn't exist because one of my teachers back in high school trolled us saying Idaho doesn't exist. It's just a place where they put the Idaho label to make folks in the West feel better about Maine potatoes.
Yeah. I actually had a shirt I
He
bought
didn't
off.
take it well. He didn't take it
Yeah.
well. I learned you should probably acknowledge people's existence.
Yeah, I had a shirt actually. I got off of tshirthell.com and it said "God bless America, except Idaho. Fuck Idaho." I love that shirt.
Ah, potatoes are so good. But I mean, it's not that there's anything wrong with that. But I'm just, I don't even, I don't even know, man. Like my big thing is, again, we try to do the best we can. We got to acknowledge that we're going to screw up. That's the thing. I always say, oh, we should treat people like human beings, treat the people how we would like to be treated. And it's like, okay, we also need to understand there's also so many perspectives. And dude, I'm freaking completely guilty of this before. I've like made assumptions about different situations, and then I go down, then I all of a sudden I get additional information. And it's like, okay, well that makes sense. That's why I'm a big
Yeah,
fan of transparency, because I do think the more transparent we are, can we necessarily be transparent and be like, hey, here's all our secrets about absolutely everything? That sounds like an unwise thing to do. So maybe we should, I don't know, process, baby steps, get a little bigger. Then we'll learn to kind of kind of trot along, maybe
yeah,
skip, do it, get into a brisk little skip, and then maybe we'll actually learn how to run someday. I don't know. It's
yeah.
we can only
Well,
hope.
one of the things actually, it's kind of funny about the transparency, and since we were talking about his wall before, one of the things I'm actually kind of pleased at, and now a lot of people are going to say, well, what do you mean? There's still stuff going on. The maneuvering he's been pulling in the Middle East lately, I got to give the man credit. He's been trying to get the most shit done with the least amount of bloodshed on both sides. And I'm being sincere on this. I'm not trying to sound like a Trump fanboy. It's just it's one of those things. And when Nancy and Chuck were both pissed off, like, well, he didn't tell us what he was doing, and the White House flat out said we wanted to make sure no one got killed. And it's one of those things. I understand and agree with you completely about the transparency. This is one of those things I'm glad he played it close to the vest. And I, as an American, have got no problem with if the commander in chief is going to play something close to the vest, not just to protect all lives, but allies' lives and even the enemy. You don't want to see anyone get killed. If he comes out like he did and he discloses it to the public afterwards, like, look, we were doing something. We had to keep people in the dark to make sure it got pulled off safe. I'm cool with that because not everyone is smart, you know? And don't want the idiots getting into the mix.
The big thing that kind of gets me, it's like, okay, you didn't even inform Nancy Pelosi. I can understand you'll. Do you really think that Speaker Pelosi is going to divulge to folks in a I don't know. It could be possible, but I'm pretty sure at that case we have ways to figure out who basically sounds like they're committing treason at that point. And again, like you said,
Yeah,
it's like we prefer not to see blood being spilt and everything. And again, we're just freaking two dudes on the internet trying to act like, oh, maybe we have some semblance of what the heck's going on here. It's like, dude, unless you're in that position, man, you don't necessarily know what you would do. And that's what so many folks say. Is there anything that could truly prepare you to be president? Well,
yeah,
maybe you could have all these skills, all this. I mean, I don't know. As far as I know, it says you've got to be 35 years of age and a naturalized citizen. That's about it. However,
yeah.
you get there, that's on you. That's on how you choose to go. But uh, my
We
thing,
don't have memes. We don't have to agree with it, but we can agree with the results. Is my point. And the results thus far, from how he pulled it off, my my hat is off to the man. Seriously, I mean, the fact of it is, he did what he said he was going to do, and it wasn't, And I'm not trying. Again, I'm not trying to, put the president up on a pedestal. He didn't really he hasn't rubbed it in our faces. It's one of those things. He's not really concentrating on the thing with the foreign policy, because I'll be honest, our domestic policy needs a lot of work right now. We got a lot of these young kids who they've got this idealized view, and they're trying to force this utopia down our throats, hammer and fist. Excuse me. Uh, it's one of those things. Like, I worry more about what's going on at home right now than what's going on around the world. I mean, everyone bitches about Putin. Not even fuck this shit about our elections. I could care less about that goat rodeo at this point. Everyone bitches about what Putin's doing on the world scene. I mean, let's be completely honest and be real here, man. How many people have you talked to from Eastern Bloc nations on a one-to-one basis? So I go up and rap with people, Slavs all day, bro. There's tons of them in my neighborhood, and they'll all say the same thing. A lot of them support Putin because they'll say to me, my country right now is like your country was during the Wild West. They're like, have you ever seen the show Deadwood? I go, yeah. I seen episodes. They're like, yeah. I think the guy was from a part of Georgia. And he goes, "Where I am in Georgia," he's like, "they just come in and kill you because there's not enough people there to do anything." He's like, "We need somebody like Putin because you need a strong man right now because Russia," he said, "is still reforming." This was probably about 5 years ago. I talked to this guy about it, and that's the thing is it's not wine and roses like we got it over here right now. They got it tough over there, bro. People talk about the Middle East. They talk about like Saudi Arabia. I have not heard anyone break down if they know about how the House of Saud works. The way it works over there, real quick, because I don't want to go off on a tangent. You got the king up top, right? Then you got each of his sons who's a prince. I know this because my brother-in-law is Jordanian, and I know how it works over there. As long as the princes don't go against the king, they're their own man. They can do what they want. That's the reason, even though he's an ally of ours, a couple of his sons had a problem and they backed up 9/11 because that was their shit, not his. And that's just how it works. It's complicated, but it's that's
There
yeah,
was certain money, and yeah, I remember there were certain things that ended up being declassified. People took issue with. Even President Obama highlighted that taking what seems like even just action at the time, if you start establishing certain precedents, it's like you may open yourself up a can of worms you can never close as well.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and that's just one of those things, man. Like, how do we figure it out? Um, my thing is, I think just so many of the issues that we have, so many of the things in the way we look at it, it's like, okay, you try to work within the system. If you work within the system, you do what you can. If you can't, then sometimes the system kind of needs a reboot once in a while. You hope that reboot is as easy as possible. It's just because I hear certain folks on varying ends of many different ideologies and everything, and they they all kind of just seem to say it's like at some point we're going to be into some terrible conflict.
Oh yeah,
I would prefer to avoid that. How we avoid that, whether it goes, dude, I just keep on going back to that episode of no, the season of 24 where it's was it David Palmer's brother happens to be the president at the time, and like there's just nonstop like terrorist attacks everywhere. The country's like falling apart. It's like I watched that on TV and was like, oh, this is a great show, and now I'm like, oh, I don't want that show to really be real life. Or, yeah, I realize stuff like that does happen in places of the world, and we should do what we
yeah.
can to try to minimize that from happening if it's even remotely involving us at all. Just because it's like, okay, do we decide to be the policemen of the world, or do we let folks fend for themselves and set up different allyships and everything as well? Um, I get it. I get it. We've set a lot of precedent and everything. If it's a threat to the United States of America, it's like I can understand, especially when you see that information, dude. All I know is if we can't agree whether what was it, Jim Acosta was either shoving and assaulting a young White House intern or worker over there, or he was just politely deflecting her hand. If we can't look at that and be like, okay, well, maybe it was this, if we're getting high end intel and people are that divided anyway, I'm like, I don't know. You're doing what you can with limited amount of time, fearing the worst. So it's like, that's why, like, one of the big things that President Trump said to kind of tie back in with what you had just said over there before about the military not talking about things. All I know is during the Iraq War, I remember like Geraldo Rivera there. Yes, we're live here, and like I can see outside the back of the bunker and everything. I'm like, isn't that where U.S. troops are stationed right now? Like live now. I'm like, I'm not from Iraq. But if I was from that part of Iraq or Baghdad or something, I recognize that area and they were the enemy in a theater of war. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a wise thing to do. And one of the biggest things that President Trump said, or candidate Trump at the time, he's like, so I'm listening to a general, and the general's like, oh, it's very tough and everything. He's like, I don't want my generals giving speeches. I want my generals kicking ass. And it's like, I agree with that. I
Yeah,
agree. Let the generals do their job. Don't necessarily send them out there. And to keep tight-lipped about those things, it's well, yeah. Drone strikes, as far as I understand, have gone up over 400%. That's a thing. That is a thing that we don't always seem to hear about. So it's just a reason I'm mentioning it's because information is out there. Take a
Yeah,
look. But again, it's like, all right, if the Islamic State happen to have so much territory and now they have no territory and they are an enemy of the United States of America, then it's okay. If those are how you're measuring the results, you don't have to agree with the morality of it. You can say it's wrong to kill other people. I I agree with that, but this is the position we are currently in. How we get out of it, we've been trying for a long time. So,
yeah.
any final thoughts, Scoop, on anything you want to touch on? I was gonna wrap up next couple.
Well, the only thing I was really going to touch on about this is again, I I had such a grandiose vision in my head when he was talking about that wall because I think I told you before. My father poured the foundations for most of his buildings here in New York and a lot of the ones in Jersey. A few of his casinos. My sister's husband, he did his flooring for years. Anyone actually who's listening, they can type in Lindenhurst Trump rally and they'll see the neighborhood I live in. They didn't announce it or nothing. They took over the street and threw a parade because they're all his plumbers, his electricians, and all those sorts of things. So, like the guys who do his tile and his grout. And I had this thing in my head where I thought not just that wall. I figured if they got this wall up, like I was talking about, the thing with the Pentagon, and we got the Gulf Coast right there, and you got the Mississippi River right to the friggin' Great Lakes and the Erie Canal, bro. I saw such chance for commerce. I was thinking like the Gulf Coast was going to become boom. And I was thinking by the time you and I retire, God willing, the next 20, 30 years or so, it was going to change this country. Like the way the Eisenhower Project changed the country from the 50s to like the 90s. Something like that.
Didn't the BP oil spill kind of take a lot of the wind out of that, though?
It took the wind out of it, but look, I'm an environmentalist first and foremost. A lot of people don't know that about me. I live on the ocean, so I'm one of those people that's all about environment. And it got us we got so much science out of that for cleaning up oil spills. My thing is it's what now 20 something years later. We got it to the point where we can pour this friggin' organism that we grew in a lab on the oil. It eats the friggin' oil. So I mean, we got so many different ways to clean this shit up, bro. You seen the movie Phantoms? That's how Ben Affleck and what's his name? What was it? Gregory Peck?
I
Oh
have
God, no, it wasn't
I
Gregory Peck.
I have not seen that movie, but I have seen
You got her.
Godzilla versus Biollante, where in the early '90s they did reference an oil or petroleum eating bacteria that had been in development, and then they just modified it to create a radiation eating bacteria in order to help neutralize Godzilla. I mean, ultimately, it didn't end up stopping him because Godzilla is a force of nature.
So Toho ripped off a Ben Affleck movie. That's awesome.
I think Ben Affleck may have actually ripped off a Toho, because actually that was like 30 or so years ago.
Peter O'Toole, that's who it was. I just remembered finally. It wasn't Gregory Peck, it was Peter O'Toole.
You sure it's
Bro,
not
you got to see Phantoms.
You sure it's not Milton Berle? I don't know.
No, no. No, I think
Mitch is
he
saying
didn't he
that.
die didn't he die right after he was on stage with RuPaul?
I don't know who all of these people are.
Milton Berle, you don't remember Milton Berle?
Oh, he's the famous guy, right?
Yeah, the comedian.
Oh, I thought that
You
was.
don't remember that he was on stage at I'm showing my age about the VMAs with RuPaul, where him and RuPaul got into that famous argument. You don't remember that? I think I was in high school at the time.
I was probably watching like I don't know a pay per view for WWF, but before they had to run the Get the F Out campaign, I think it's something like that.
Yeah,
So
back in the good old days. Yeah, wrestling sucks compared to that.
I mean, you're going by like what we're allowed to have on TV. We can have a lot of other things that are cool, and we've diversified. I know Vince has diversified his portfolio with WWE holdings quite well. Hey, I mean, power to the dude for that. Um, but yeah, I think just to wrap up and carry us out here, what I'll say is, okay, if elections do have consequences, the president he's building his border barrier down there. Are there flaws in it? Yeah, yeah. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need. I personally think that a lot of these things can be nipped in the bud, kind of on our side of the border, and we could spend those resources elsewhere that could be maximized. Again, you need to look at the data. All I know is you see more and more folks coming over. I mean, in my mind, if you want to seek the American dream, I mean, that we always consider that to be a noble thing. It's just we just need to do corrections as we can to maximize the number of folks that can do it the right way. They're going to come here to contribute and be Americans because I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that as a goal. So, hey, thank you everybody for watching and peace out. We'll see you guys.
Later, all.